Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to 30 Minutes with Lynxspring, our monthly webinar series. I'm Marc Petock, Vice President of Marketing, and on behalf of all of us at Lynxspring, I want to thank you for joining us. A couple of housekeeping items. We'll be recording the webinar, and we'll make the slide deck and the recording available. In addition, in keeping with the theme, 30 Minutes with Lynxspring, we'll do the presentation first and take a few questions at the conclusion of the presentation. If you have questions, please enter it into the chat function of the webinar, and we'll try to get to as many questions as we possibly can given the time. So today's topic, we're going to look at integration, and it's going to be presented by Pat Hirsch and Lee Snyder, who are part of the Lynxspring business development team. So just as a way of a little bit of background, buildings today are equipped with a diverse range of systems to control HVAC, energy, lighting, security, and a variety of other things within these buildings. Over the past decade, all of us have seen a tremendous advance in automation systems and smart devices. With today's IP-connected systems employing a variety of standard protocols and web services, is now a must to integrate the wide range of system, equipment, and devices that operate our buildings today. Effective integration and interoperability between these systems is critical to improving building performance, reducing costs, achieving the security and comfort levels demanded in most business environments today. Integration improves building performance and efficiency, as we all know. It eliminates complexity, lowers operating costs, enables greater control and manageability, and most importantly, better service delivery. Integration helps us differentiate, add value, enhance customer satisfaction, and of course, win business. So today, as our agenda that you see on the slide, we're going to look at several components within integration. We're going to look at a business case of integration, the benefits of integration, what Lynxspring has that addresses integration, sizing some of the technology that Lynxspring provides, our Genesis platforms, some value add opportunities and things that Lynxspring provides, and we're going to share with you some selling and best practice tips. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Pat and Lee. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. This is Pat Hirsch, Vice President of Strategic Accounts for Lynxspring. So let's give a definition of integration. What do we mean by integrations, or rather to integrate, in this case in the context of building automation systems? Well, it's nothing more than the practice of connecting disparate or unlike parts or systems. Conceptually, this could be major system integrations, such as connecting the temperature control system to a building security system. Or this could be to connect to a work order management system, for example. Integrations more precisely for much of today's conversation is going to be regarding connecting smart devices between unlike manufacturers specific to building automation systems. So why do we care about integrating unlike systems? What's the benefit? Well, for the client, the major benefit of integrated solutions is about freedom of choice. And this freedom is in the choice of the client being able to select the service provider they choose, freedom of choice to select the products they prefer, and also not to be ignored. Through integrated systems, the client can extend the life of their system. This is opposed to tearing out the control system each time you hire a new service provider or each time you need to add new equipment to your building. For the contractors, the benefits are being able to integrate systems allow you to basically work on more projects. This is in contrast to focusing in on only one type of manufactured product. It allows you to differentiate your organization. It also, in some ways, can reduce your reliance on a single manufacturer. In this case, the vendor manufacturer you work with. Possibly this opens your territory from sales restrictions. So what is the vision for integration? Well, basically, it's quite simple. It's the ability to say yes to your client, to say yes, you can maintain your current investment and installation. Yes, you can be free from the incumbent provider, and yes, we as a solution provider can integrate all of your assets. The vision also introduces a concept called migration, which is simply maximizing the life of your existing system while at the same time incorporating new solutions at the customer's discretion. Now, I've used the term migration before when talking to a lot of you folks individually, but the migration model isn't just for retrofit projects, but rather laying out a long-term plan at the design phase also allows the end user more choices in the future. So in a typical control system, and for the purpose of discussion, I want to differentiate between automation and field level controls. An automation level controller, in this case, is generally your large point, high function plant controller. But now in today's environment, it also could be a hybrid management device. All in all, it's generally a more sophisticated controller. In contrast, field level controller is typically your application specific smart device. In most terms, what we run across is this is your VAV boxes or VAV box controllers, your fan coils, your smart thermostats. So why is this differentiation important? Well, for two reasons. First, the bulk of the building controllers will be at the field level. And secondly, they'll be much easier and less risky to integrate. According to the Continental Automated Building Association report on the BAS market, there is on average a 3-to-1 volume advantage of field versus automation level controllers installed. And I would venture to say that when normalized against larger buildings, that ratio is even more pronounced. Consider your typically large VAV system. Following this idea, here's some more kind of statistics with respect to the share of communication protocols used. On the left is a breakout of field level controllers, and on the right is automation level controllers via protocol. Now, to no one's surprise, BACnet has risen to become the predominant protocol. So what does that mean? Well, if you don't have a BACnet solution, you're probably going to have a tough time competing. But also, just as important, as a vendor, you should also consider how many installed systems are not BACnet. Note that more than half of the protocols used for field level controllers are not BACnet, with 38% considered proprietary. And also our friend Lon still has a decent share of the market. According to the market segmentation in terms of dollars, this means almost a 2-to-1 advantage of field controllers. And once again, I would venture to say that this is even more pronounced in medium to larger buildings. So where should your focus be? Your focus should be on the field level devices. Further continuing this idea, here's a breakout of installed systems by manufacturer. I think to no one's surprise, a handful of control manufacturers have the majority of the install market. Now, ironically, not by accident, Lynxspring's most popular legacy drivers reflect these systems. The Johnson N2 driver, the Siemens Apogee System 600 driver, Schneider ASD Andover drivers, Traincom 3Com 4 drivers, Carrier CCN, Honeywell C-Bus are our most popular drivers and in highest demand, and ironically our most successful. So what are some of the best practices or approaches to performing integrated solutions? Well, once again, first, focus in on the more simple field level controllers. They make up the bulk of the installed system, and the replacement of these devices as a whole comes at the greatest cost to the customer. Secondly, Secondly, with respect to the large point controllers, it really comes down to comfort level. But I will recommend that you replace the large point automation level plant controllers outright with a product you're more comfortable with. Now, why would you do that? Well, you'll find that there's more risk of issues in these high-functioning controllers. This is where the bad applications, bad sequences, a lot of overridden peripheral devices may reside. And unless you are a native product specialist, the amount of time spent diagnosing bad plant applications will not be worth the effort versus outright replacing it with a device of in your comfort level. Thirdly, address the communication needs. If you have a legacy integration, you of course cannot mix serial networks. That is, if you're trying to replace it with a BACnet MSTP device, for example. You may need to pull a second bus. Make all this process part of a long-term service strategy and discuss it with our customer. Now, I've got one slide left, and I just want to set some expectations. Now, performing integrations and getting to the integration market, it's not a plug-and-play solution. This requires experienced installers and general experience at multi-systems. You need to talk to your customers so they understand what we mean by the term migration. And at the beginning of the project, you have to do a significant amount of information gathering. Now, done properly, performing integrations is a highly cost-effective solution for the client. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Lee Snyder.
So as Pat said, I'm Lee Snyder, Director of OEM Sales with Lynxspring, and I'm very happy to be here. Thank you. So now that we've had a little bit of a conversation about the value of integration, let's talk a little bit about what integration is, what it looks like, and how it fits into the bigger picture. Integration is part of a much larger concept that we at Lynxspring like to refer to as the building operating system. This is because of all the applications that we're running connecting to all of these devices. When you integrate all the systems and hardware to a common system, you can do so much more than just turning air conditioning on and off, and that's where this concept of the building operating system has come from. So as we said before, integration is the practice of incorporating parts of a discrete or disparate system into another system for the purpose of control or monitoring. So we can do things like provide services, work order management based on the information or the equipment that's actually connected to the system, or analytics, for example, looking at real-time information through the dashboards or the energy management system real-time. And that's a huge value, but in order to bring those systems into and view them real-time, they have to be brought into a common platform where you can work with them, where you can model them, and you can view them. And that's really the concept behind integration. There's all these systems out there that are available within your building, exterior system, HVAC, of course, gas detection, liquid detection, for example, in a data center is a common one. Interior and exterior lighting. I mentioned utility monitoring. And just as an example, there's a driver out there that you can use to bring utility information in directly from a meter that we call Metron. It's the ANSI C1220 capable driver certified by Met Labs. It provides you utility-grade resolution for bill verification. So if you have an application of a small building or a leased office space and you're looking at analytics, you have the ability to bring that information directly into your building automation system. Again, that's why we call it a building operating system, because it's more than just turning things on and off. So there's a great deal of value associated with bringing all those different systems in for an end user. When they look at it, they can see all of the different operations of their facility in one centralized location. For our business partners, it brings a lot of value because instead of just, and this slide on the left shows some of the areas of growth, instead of just looking at the building automation system, when you tie in the lights or some of the other systems that are available, you can add additional value for your project and additional equipment to your project. So instead of just connecting your HVAC systems, the customer gets the value of all the systems together, and you can get a much larger project and provide much more service to your end user. Everybody wins. So what are we doing when we actually are doing an integration project? As Pat alluded to, there's field devices and then there's supervisory devices. And what we normally will do is replace the supervisory devices with drivers, hardware, and of course your intellectual knowledge of programming to provide different systems commonalities. We normalize the data between, and I used all air handlers in this example. It could very easily have been outdoor lighting, could have been the lawn sprinkler system. That doesn't really matter what the equipment is, but they're different systems all brought in using a device driver in your programming into a common platform with the capabilities and extending that out through local area networks, the internet connection, third-party applications, export of data to some other location. But all of that is available when you've brought them all into a common system. That extends, of course, beyond a single building to multiple buildings where you can then, of course, add in area supervisors, and then as a system of multiple locations or multiple controllers, you can then extend that functionality out for additional applications or information. So we refer to things as a roll-up. I've showed this here nationally. This could be globally, or it could just be a campus, for example. But now that we've tied all these systems together in a common platform, we can look at analytics, we can look at alarms, trends, histories, we can look at it or set, for example, lights for all of our systems within a time zone to all operate together. Or, of course, drill down to an individual device and look at an individual air handler and set points for them. All of those things are benefits to the end user and allow you to add more service and value to your solutions for your customers. We do this typically here at Lynxspring through our Niagara AX framework that we sell through our Genesis controllers. They are an open control platform, open system, and an open standard. So I'd like to, and I've had a great deal of success with my business partners when they've used the scenario of going to the customer for integration and saying, you know, we're going to bring in all of these different systems into a common platform. It's an open platform, and we're going to provide excellent service and hardware for you over the next 3 or 5 years, whatever that service period is. And then at the end of that service period, you're left with an open platform, not a proprietary system that you are stuck and locked into a particular service network with. And that has been a very successful strategy for our business partners. So getting down into the weeds here a little bit, when we select those hardware for the integration project, we have to size the controller. We have to decide which piece of hardware we want to connect with. So there's no real hard and fast rule here, but we've given you some guidelines, some rule of thumbs to kind of help you with your product selection. This is available to you. We can send this to you if you don't already have it. It's not a problem. Just send us a request or contact your business development manager. But for example here, you might have an installation where you're going to have several different devices, some VAV controllers and some air handlers. So you've got a number of devices. But as I said, this is not a hard, fast rule. This is just a guideline. So if we have 50 devices, maybe we can get more points. But maybe the customer is very interested in seeing all of their information on web pages, and you're going to do a lot more graphics here than just what we put into this rule of thumb. So we take that into consideration, add more graphics, then maybe we have fewer points available to us or fewer devices. So this is an area that does require some experience, as Pat has alluded to, but there is help and assistance available to you if you're not comfortable with that. But selecting your product is very, very important. And then, of course, after you've selected the hardware, we have to know which controllers, which drivers to use to connect to those devices. Of course, we offer all of your standard communication, open systems that people are familiar with, your backnets, your lawns, and so forth. But most of our end users aren't aware that all of these legacy system drivers are available to them to bring all these systems together into a common platform. And that's an area for you to add value and extend your business. If you don't see the driver that's listed here, and these are just some of our more popular ones of recent, there's another 75 drivers that we have in our price list. And if you don't see it in our price list, don't panic. Contact your BDM. There's probably a driver for your solution out there. But keep in mind, if that driver doesn't exist, that may not be the end of the story. Please contact us and let's discuss the opportunity to build a driver for you. Lynxspring is in a big way involved in creating drivers for the Niagara AX platform and creating opportunities for you to integrate your systems together. So let us be of assistance. Another little hardware item here that's been really popular was our bridge product. This particular Onyx device is a true bridge. It's not a gateway. So it's a true protocol converter from Modbus to BACnet. And this is a particularly successful device when you're looking at a remote item, maybe a chiller plant somewhere farther away from your building and the rest of your controls platform, or a generator that's out in a separate building. Instead of putting a full controller out there, we can take and collect those Modbus points and put them onto your IP network and bring that functionality back into the rest of the building operating system. For your customers that have large number of points or have a large number of users that want to log in and look at all of the information that's available, and the controller is just not enough, there's an opportunity to use some software that would only limit then by the hardware itself. So you can add lots of trends and alarms and graphics without fear of filling up the memory in your controller. And then of course the Genesis Supervisor product allows you to look at multiple controllers and gives you that ability to do that roll up with a large geographic area, maybe a campus or multiple site installation. So just to go through an actual example of what an integration project looks like. In this case, and I'm not throwing any controller or any system under the bus, it's just as an example. There's a building here, the customers come to you and they say they've got a large installation of N2, and they've got some Johnson Controls controllers in here and a lot of field devices out here. But this controls manufacturer, for whatever reason at the time, maybe they bought the building and it's been in there for a while, it's a legacy system. They want some additional functionality that they don't currently have. And they've come to you, and so we're going to do an integration project real quick. So what we're going to do is go through and decide what controller that we need to use, what drivers need to go into the system, match up the features for the controller. For in this example, they want a web user interface. And we're going to add all of that together with our programming into our controller and apply this to this installation. But before we do any installations, we need to look at what are the capabilities of the drivers, what are the limitations of the driver. Pat pointed out something that's incredibly important when you do integration, and that is this is not plug and play. Some things work better than others, and it's not a cookie cutter, one size fits all. So we're going to do some research on this driver. We're going to look at what devices can we easily integrate. You'll see that in this particular driver, there's information provided about what devices have been tested and will integrate, but won't fully integrate. So maybe we have to do some manual points or a little bit of manual labor there to get some of these devices brought in. And in some cases, some of these devices, for example, just simply may not integrate at all. So we have to take that into consideration and work with the end user and set their expectations so that they know what they're getting into and understand that this is a process that you as a system integrator will be there for them to work with them over time and give them this migration path to get to an updated system with additional capabilities. So now in this particular scenario, we've installed our controller. We've taken over the field devices in that N2 network with our N2 driver, but some of those devices didn't integrate. And as Pat alluded to, we do need to have a separate serial bus network trunk available for those devices. So we've put that into our planning, and our customer is very happy with this. We've now changed out and updated some devices, but we've extended the life of some existing product that was already in that building, and we've given them some additional functionality that they didn't have before. So now that opportunity exists for you to go in and take over the rest of that building. You can see here that we've added some Modbus to BACnet bridge products, and we've picked up that remote chiller and that remote generator and brought those into our overall system. So now when we're connected to our web user interface, we have the ability to go in and look at all of the devices in our system and not just a couple of components. We've added cybersecurity, web supervisor for that cloud roll-up application, and now we've got some remote programming capabilities that we didn't have before. Now that, gentlemen, is, ladies and gentlemen, is integration in a nutshell. The last thing I want to talk about before I wrap up is that there's professional services available for those of you who are not as comfortable with the concept of integration, for any level of support, whether it's just creating some drawings, doing takeoff some of your bids, doing some engineering, commissioning, writing the station for you itself, the programming yourself. All of those services are available through Lynxspring's professional services. So with that, I have completed my presentation. I'm going to turn this over to George.
Oh,
You ready?
well, I have to say thank you, both of you. Outstanding. I mean, it's just it's unbelievable what integration can really provide to our market. The business case as far as extending the life of a product for a customer that may not have the budget right now to replace everything, and then also the other business case of providing additional value to their products. I mean, again, with the amount of information that our systems collect as a whole, not just temperatures and whatever, but how the building is actually being used, it's just tremendous. And then being able to take that information and apply it through analytics, exception reporting, work order management, or any other system, even a marketing, it's really opening it up for us, and integration is key for all that. But with that, we have just a couple more minutes where we have a few questions that have been asked. And there's one question that Pat received. Pat, why don't you go ahead and go with that?
This is somewhat generic, but it says, what is the financial conversation you need to have with your client regarding integrating systems? I'd like to use a VAV system example. The client has an option of selecting service providers. Now, if they're motivated to move to a new service provider, for example, they're going to be presented with an option: A, can we maintain our existing system, or B, do we have to outright replace everything? Now, I just look at it from a financial standpoint, and maybe some of you guys can correct me on this, but I've always used a number anywhere between $900 and $1,500 per VAV box to do an outright replacement. That may be higher or lower depending on your location. Integrating the system is going to be half to 1/3 of that cost, provided it's done properly. So I think that's where the conversation begins, is laying out that financial plan. Obviously, there's a service component to it. So hopefully that helped answer it a little bit.
Very cool. We've got two quick questions. One is, where do we find information on these drivers? Again, our resources.lynxspring.com, underneath Genesis and drivers, they're all listed there with some installation guides and data sheets kind of summarizing what those protocols are or drivers are. And then lastly, there was one is, how do I test out a driver to see if it works? Most of the drivers that we have give you the ability to download the module and add it to your demo station, which gives you like an hour or 2-hour window to test to see if that driver works with the system that you're trying to integrate or try to normalize. Do we have any other questions that you guys see?
Well, I just add to that. I think any license feature that we offer, regardless of protocol, Lynxspring is motivated to give you a test version of that if you want to do a trial.
Absolutely, because that's awesome. But I don't think there are any other questions, and we're at our 30-minute limit.
Well, is Mark out there yet? Is there any other questions? Is he collecting any questions?
Mark, are you collecting any questions?
I don't see any, but thanks. And again, keeping to the integrity of the program, we're at our 30-minute window here.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have one more, or do we have time for one more? All right. All right, guys. Well, if you have any other questions, please contact us at 816-347-3500. That's our main line, or contact us at our website, www.lynxspring.com. Again, thank you. This video will be uploaded to youtube.com to our Lynxspring channel. Well, thank you again for joining us. Have a good night. Good day.